Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Chris here. Chris, you've built up what became, I think, the biggest by revenue influencer marketing agency company in the world. I mean, it's pretty impressive to get it to that type of point, but you did a lot of things right. You enabled brands to connect with influencers, with people, with content creators in a seamless way that really wasn't so possible beforehand. You built up a system that was really turnkey and helped a lot of creators figure out ways to monetize, and when they weren't necessarily able to reach some of these brands, helped oversee these campaigns in a great manner. And you eventually got, they have the opportunity to have it acquired. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Thank you so much. Proud to be here. Excited to be here.
Awesome. So going right to the beginning, how did your interest in being an entrepreneur and kind of more internet-based companies, how did that passion of going on this type of path in your life begin?
So it actually started for me really early on. I'm wearing the hat now just by coincidence, probably because I didn't do my hair before this. So I was the chief marketing officer of the brand Von Dutch in the early 2000s. And I did that in between the years of 2003 and to 2006. And I actually came in as the assistant in the marketing department and rose to CMO within like a year and a half. And this is between ages 24 and 26 for myself. So, was very fortunate to land on the right place at the right time while there was something going on in Hollywood that was just Hollywood and fashion that was extremely exciting. And kind of tapped into the original influencers without, we didn't call them that then. They would maybe call people like socialites, or, there also wasn't like the social media platforms that there are today. So I kind of got an early taste. I didn't realize that my entire career track would have like a through line of influencers. I'm quoting, got like the narrow here, air quoting, but it turned out to be a really like elemental portion of what my career became to be. So I worked at this company from 2003 to 2006 and just absolutely like exploded year over year growth. That was largely because of like celebrities. So I was working with, the most notable celebrities of that time. I mean, everybody from, Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears were wearing it to Halle Berry and Madonna. Every A-lister loved Von Dutch. And so that was sort of like my intro into the foray of like celebrities and people that had a lot of influence. And so, from that role, I kind of got seen as a, celebrity whisperer of sorts, or somebody who had great relationships with top tier people. And so from there, I actually started my own PR firm, which was called American Rebel PR. And I started that in 2006 at the age of 26. And I was able to do that because I had a sneaker brand who actually was looking for me to do what I had done for Von Dutch for them. And I said the only way that I could do this is as an agency. And so I went to go quit at Von Dutch. And they said that I was so essential to what they were doing that they were like, all right, well, we'll become agency clients. So I went from being an employee at a company to having an agency where I had 2 clients and no staff or no office, anything. And so, the entrepreneurial journey started like trial by fire. And so I was literally like working out of my little house in Los Angeles. And I'd actually built a tent in the backyard because the shoe company was sending me like hundreds of pairs of shoes. And so I built this big tent and I literally kept all the shoes in the tent. If somebody knew where they were and had robbed me blind, it would have probably been like the end of my career with this shoe brand. The shoe brand was actually called Osiris. It was like a California surf and skate shoe that was really big in like the early 2000s. And so, I was totally faking it till I made it. For the first maybe 2 or 3 months, I would work half the day at like the Von Dutch office, like acting as like, acting CMO, but then leave after half the day and then go back to my house and kind of put on the other hat of like doing Osiris. Sometimes I'd commingle them together. But eventually I got enough revenue going or whatever. The thing was completely bootstrapped and I was so young at the time. I wasn't really thinking about the perspective. Younger people today are so much savvier because they learn about getting investments and all that stuff. I was just going and doing. So I got enough money together that I finally got an office on Sunset Boulevard. It was a small, humble office, but a cool space, and we made it cool. And I hired like my first couple of people and expanded that over, I had American Rebel PR was about a 7-year project. And at its peak, I think I was around 20 employees, and probably maybe 15 or so clients at one time. And so it was kind of more down the road of it was still the same vein as Von Dutch, and the fact that like people looked to me to bring celebrities and what was becoming the first influencers on social media, because the period of time of this was like 2006 to 2013. So during that period of time, that was sort of like the advent of when, your MySpace and then Facebook, or Twitter and then Facebook, all of these things started to come into the mix. And so as I was enjoying doing the PR business of things, I really saw that like there was a sea change in what was influence, or what was celebrity even. And it really seemed like influencers were going that direction. And so my younger brother, Ryan, who is actually our CEO at Influential, moved out to Los Angeles. And when he got here, he started the original concepting of what became Influential. And, he was doing deals on Twitter. He had amassed a large following of owned and operated accounts, but not himself, like things like at travel, at fashion and style, like verticalized niche accounts. And so he was starting to see that brands were actually coming to him and offering large sums of money to post on social. But this was like a complete Wild West scenario. There wasn't any sort of structure. It wasn't regarded by brands or agencies yet. And so it was like a very, very raw, but brilliant space. And so as he started developing the technology for this, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, this is really like transformative. This could be a really big thing. But we need to figure out and around this time, I was sort of getting tired of the PR space a bit, and feeling like I needed some sort of a change. And so, I really recognized what he was doing and thought I could bring my talents to what he was doing, especially because I'm very much the relationship, the connection, PR marketing sort of brain. And so I came up with an idea to really kind of launch Influential on steroids via something that we called the Influential House, which turned out to be probably the first ever creator house. Creator houses are obviously very different now in that they're like, a bunch of creators living together in a house on an ongoing basis. This was actually an idea that I was like, it's all about culture and it's all about being cool. That's what influencers really, thrive upon. So let's do an event at Coachella. And so we rented a house at Coachella, and this was like so early in influence, and this was 2014, that none of the influencers really had money yet. And we invited all of them to come and stay with us, basically get paid, to party for the weekend, do brand deals, and connect with each other. And so we ended up getting, I think, 40 or 50 joining us. And this was it was a mini mansion. There was by no means a sprawling estate. It was maybe 4 or 5 bedrooms, but we put cots everywhere because, we wanted to get as many of them there as possible. And, I'm talking about like early days, like Logan and Jake Paul were there, Rudy Mancuso, we had Amanda Cerny, some of the biggest stars in influencer marketing today, or biggest influencers, were there at those first event that we did. It was such a success. We ended up doing 2 more of those. But that was sort of something that really shot us into the stratosphere, so to speak, as far as how our company, came along in the very early days.
Mm-hmm. So what were you thinking that Influential was going to be at the time? Like, how did it start to evolve into what it is today?
So my brother always had a vision for it to be a very data-driven platform, and maintain that all the way throughout. I always was more of the mindset that parties, events, networking with influencers was sort of the side of the business that I was most interested in. But, ultimately the most business usefulness comes from, being able to structure this and take it away from being, a Wild West sort of, business structure to being something that like all of the advertising agencies and eventually the brands all knew that had to be like a part of their line item budgets every year.
So how did you start to build out the platform and attract these brands? And get the kind of influencers on board? Like, you seem you had the influencers, but how did you convince brands that this was the right way to connect with them?
It was definitely like an education process. My brother and then our chief revenue officer, who joined us very, very early as well, Chris Dennis. He and my brother would largely do tons of road shows in New York, mainly because that's where most of the agencies are. And it was just a competitive or a continual repetitive process of educating. It wasn't so easy in the beginning, and it wasn't, now we really only do like 6-figure and above budgets on things. But back then we had to be able to convince people that it was worth, $25,000 or $50,000 to be able to do an influencer campaign. So that came along with like a lot of education and progression with all the various social platforms. But over time, brands started to see the usefulness, and because we came from a data first approach, it was always about giving clients tangible results that they could measure and then build off of.
Yeah. So, I mean, you got it to a point where I think you had over 3.5 million influencers on the platform. How did it start? How did you start to manage all that? I mean, that's a robust amount of people, and actually get it to that kind of scale. Was a lot of it word of mouth? And then, like, was it just they realized the campaigns that were going on? How did you hit that type of scale?
Yeah, well, because it's a data platform, we were able to ingest a lot of creators into it, but it did have to start somewhere. And, it did start with like the dozens that became hundreds, that became thousands, and, so on and so forth. And it grew that way. But yeah, it was a very organic growth process. I think, the popularity of the Influential House and getting some of those big creators in the very early days sort of sent, the message along very quickly that Influential was one of the pioneers in the industry of it. And, we just continued to be very active and growing. We've always had creator relations teams that have fostered those relationships. And then, people, influencers are able to sign up to the platform as well. So over time, that kind of just built, larger and larger.
And you wound up getting backed by, I mean, a bunch of different people, but you really had a strategic partnership with WME. What was that like? Why was that like? Well, first of all, how beneficial really was that to getting you guys to the type of scale you're at today?
I think it was absolutely huge. It was a time where there was sort of a shift going on in the way that people were thinking about influencer marketing. In the early days, it was companies like WME and UTA and CAA that sort of ruled the influencer world. And we sort of went like with an opposite thesis. Instead of representing the talent, which we don't actually represent, we have a network of 3.5 million influencers, but we don't represent the talent. We actually represent the brands. And so we went this opposite approach, and we always aim to do it to the top tier brands. And so we always worked with the Fortune 500 or the Fortune 1000. And so, we were able to build something that actually proved to be a more scalable model than what the talent agencies were doing. And I have a good friend at WME named Chris Jackaman, who was heading up digital at the time, and we had a bunch of conversations about it. And he liked the idea so much that he brought it to Ari Emanuel. And so Ryan, CP, Chris Dennis, and I went and met with Ari Emanuel, which was one of like the most intimidating meetings you can imagine. I remember calling my brother and being like, how should we dress for this? Because I'm literally like, you see me normally, I'm like a leather jacket sort of guy or whatever. I'm like, I think I'm going to wear the leather. And my brother kind of was like old Zuckerbergian dress, like the same thing, or the Steve Jobsian, same thing, like same sort of shirt that he'd always wear. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to do that too. So we all just went as we were. And, I was thinking that he was going to be very aggressive, and it was quite the opposite. He was very excited about what we were doing, and immediately got it, and wanted to be a part of what we were doing. And around the same time, we were raising our Series B funding round, and so they were one of the leading names to join us for that, which obviously gave us so much power and so much excitement because of the name that they are. And over time, we've had a great partnership with them. They continue to work in the world of influencers, and so we work with a lot of their talent there. But then also they have like the world's biggest celebrity names. And a lot of the influencer industry, we're seeing brands wanting to do campaigns where they have like a flagship celebrity type person, and then we surround them with influencers.
So wow, so that was really significant.
Yeah, absolutely. It really felt like, I mean, the story came out in Variety. It really like got, the entertainment industry that, I feel like we were on the fringes of previously, really got them to understand that like influencer marketing was like really here to stay, and that it's a scalable business that, can grow year over year. And the numbers are astronomical. I will probably misquote it, but I think that the industry is like a $28 billion industry right now.
And all throughout this time, Chris, you didn't want to become an influencer yourself.
I've never had the desire to. I think it's funny too, because I really got into this around the age of 35, and so I was already like archaic. I often joke that the first time I've ever felt old was when we threw our first influential house party, and I thought like I was like so cool, and like honestly, like most of these people were average age, like 20, 22 years old or whatever. And yeah, I felt like a father figure or something. But yeah, that's never occurred to me. I've never been, oriented along that. I mean, my brother was, in the sense of like a behind the scenes sort of person, but yeah, no, I think we belong behind the scenes a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, everyone has their place.
Yeah.
So, now you guys also have like a bit of an approach with AI, like integrating that. What do you want to accomplish there? Like, what do you think you can do that you haven't done yet?
I mean, AI is an amazing tool. We actually recognized it very early on, and in 2016, we partnered with IBM Watson, and that was another, very critical moment for us. A great validator for the industry and for Influential as a whole. We were able to partner with them when we were this very small company, and get the support all the way up to the CEO, who would talk about us. Jenny Rometty, the CEO of IBM, would talk about us on stage, about being, this company that had a practical use for AI, in the modern business world. And so we were able to actually decipher like personality characteristics using like the Big Five theory, which is much like Myers-Briggs, where you read the syntax of what's on social, anything from text to emojis, and then extrapolate that into personality characteristics. And so that was sort of like the first usage of AI. But with generative AI coming along so quickly and so excitingly recently, we're figuring out ways to automate, influencer briefs, and just overall figuring out ways to automate and cut out as much of the excessive like work that AI can actually cover for.
Yeah, so that's interesting. You were pretty early on in adopting it, and now it's the thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. So by, I'd say 2018 or 19, we had used it so much that it kind of became table stakes for the industry. And then all of our competitors had like an AI solution. And then it was quiet for a little period of time. And then when generative AI came on, it was maybe about 2 years ago now, the conversation has been hot and heavy. And, we're all looking for ways to automate things and utilize it more and more.
So just kind of like on a broad overview, Chris, like what actually goes into doing a campaign between an influencer or influencers and a brand really well, hitting goals and actually executing the way you want?
So it's, basically our system would use data to identify what the most ideal influencers are for campaigns. And then, we would give that to clients in a brief, and they would look at the swath of influencers and select, it's a combination of what the data tells them to do, plus, what personal, brand instincts are. So it's kind of the marriage of, data and personal touch. And so we, would choose these influencers, run the campaign, provide full backend analytics, and real measurability. And I think just the repetitive nature of doing thousands of these campaigns and getting better and better at it over time just grew trust for Influential and ultimately helped grow the business.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you learned a lot, I'm sure, by just the scale of this and how many different campaigns you ran.
Mm-hmm.
So recently you guys had this incredible acquisition. How did it get to that point? How did that come together, that deal? Why was it the right partner?
It was all the right things at the right time. I mean, Publicis is the world's largest and leading um, um, media company, and um, you know, we had thought for years that we wanted to have a big brother, have a larger company that could help us accelerate the growth, and the way that things worked out, we got to partner with the very best. So it's been really exciting, and um, the process has been fast and furious, but it's been tremendous.
And has your role like changed at all since the acquisition? Like, are you doing anything different?
No, surprisingly, I mean, I think we're busier than we've ever been, but I think we all are keeping our respective roles, and that's been great about being with Publicis is that they've been very, they've allowed us to be influential. A lot of times when these acquisitions happen, you might lose your identity, or they put you into a certain lane. They trust us, and they believe in our process, and they've been nothing but helpful. So very appreciative to them for that.
That's awesome. So like some of the biggest ways they're gonna benefit you is like with like the capital, like they're gonna help accelerate that. Like what are some of the ways that you really want them to increase influential and help its influence?
Well, the greatest part about it is that they represent like 60% of the Fortune 500 brands in the US. And so we can just turn our efforts inward and spend, a lot of time and effort fostering the relationships that lie within the agency. And so, if we do what we're already doing plus that, then, we'll grow exponentially.
Makes sense. So what do you want to do now? Like what are your short-term goals, your long-term goals? What's the big picture vision that you have, Chris, for your life?
I don't make very long term plans. What I'm doing right now is something that I absolutely love. Very passionate about the work that we do as Influential, and especially now being a part of the Publicis Groupe family. Um, I'm just focused on that. There's a lot of great work to be done. A lot more that we can accomplish. We are the leaders, pretty much undisputed leaders of our industry. And you can't say it too many times in life that you get to a place where you're like truly a leader of things. And so that's motivation enough. It's been great to go through a sale process and get to a financial security of it. But I don't think that by any means does that feel like a finish line. I feel like it's a great motivator to keep going and keep doing great things. And we're locked in and excited about the future with them.
Yeah, that's great to hear that you still have that drive and want to build
Yeah.
stuff and make it happen. Some people lose it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I definitely haven't. I think it's only grown.
that's awesome. So where do you see, Chris, like the influencer landscape kind of going? Like, I mean, you mentioned you were building an influencer house early on.
Mhm.
What being an influencer in general, what it is, it's so different today than when you started. Where do you see it kind of going towards in the future? What are some trends you see emerging as in
Yeah,
the
I mean,
influence?
I think the real future of the creator economy is commerce. I think you've seen it, especially in Asia over the last few years. They've been way ahead of things and really bridging the gap of creators and commerce. So I think you're seeing a lot of the platforms now testing out commerce platforms and the way to do that. So I think that that's going to be a big part of it. I think also and I think you and I touched on this a little bit before we got started here. Influencers are becoming brands themselves, and so we're seeing more and more of the Mr. Beasts and the Paul brothers and the like creating their own brands that are I believe will eventually be sold to the big Fortune 500 brands. A Unilever or P&G or somebody like that might acquire these brands as they continue to grow and prosper. I think that influencers have the ability to be their own media network and continue to grow that. And you're seeing that with so many of the, we actually curate or help curate the Forbes top creator list every year. And a large part of the top tier of that is the people that own their own brands. And that's really become the way to grow exponentially as a creator, is to get to that level where you're actually creating your own business opportunities as opposed to relying on brands. But I think that the ecosystem is such that there's room for everybody. And, there's new creators popping up every single day. I believe that it's what kids say in school that they want to be the most these days, which is interesting.
Yeah, like half the youth wants to be content creators today. It used to be the athletes is what they wanted to be.
Yeah.
Very different. So just the last question, Chris, that I have. So if you were to look back at your journey, what would be a couple of things that were like key decisions you made that you would tell other entrepreneurs to do today?
Key decisions. Be relentless. Don't have a plan B. I mean, a lot of people say that and a lot of people think it's crazy, but like, if you really, really believe in what you're doing and you're focused on it and you put all of your energy into it, even if it doesn't work out, I mean, the fact of the matter is that, 95 or something percent of businesses, entrepreneurial ventures fail. But you gotta give it your all and leave it all out there. Be innovative, be fast, be willing to, take risks and sacrifice more than others around you. Being an entrepreneur is a tough thing, but if you can get to the other side of it, it's very, very rewarding.
Yeah, that's definitely good advice. Well, I appreciate you doing this. I think you're, definitely an example of somebody who's really built something that's alongside the American dream. This is what people want to do. They want to go from, trying out their own ideas, making something scalable, getting an exit, and building something impactful in the world. And you've helped a lot of creators, you've helped a lot of brands. I'm sure you're going to continue doing that now with the recent acquisition. So I wish you much success, Chris. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Ben.